The wedding day had finally come, a day that everyone had waited for with great excitement. The hall was full of life. Bright flowers covered the walls, hanging in long lines that made the place look like a garden. The smell of fresh roses, lilies, and hibiscus filled the air. Music played from the live band at the front corner, the steady beat of drums and the sound of trumpets mixing with soft voices singing old love songs. Guests clapped their hands, laughed, and some danced even before the ceremony started. It was a day that seemed perfect, a day made for happiness. Kwesi, the groom, stood tall at the center of the hall. His clothes were neat and shining, the white fabric embroidered with gold at the edges. His face carried a look of pride, not the pride of arrogance, but the pride of a young man beginning a new journey in life. His hand held tightly to the hand of his bride, Efua. She wore a gown that shimmered under the lights, her smile wide and bright like the sun itself. Every step she took sent whispers of admiration through the guests. Together they looked like a pair of stars, glowing and lighting up the hall. Families from both sides had come together, some traveling long distances to be present. Uncles, aunts, cousins, and friends filled the hall, wearing colorful clothes that reflected the culture of their land. Some wore Kent cloth in bold patterns, others in bright lace that caught the light. The colors mixed like a painting, red, blue, gold, green, and white. Laughter moved from one table to another as plates of food and cups of drinks were shared. Children ran about at the back playing games and chasing balloons. The wedding was alive, full of energy, joy, and love. But while everyone celebrated loudly, one woman kept her heart quiet. Amma, the mother of the groom, sat at a table near the front. She wore a deep blue dress, her head wrapped in matching cloth. Her smile was calm, her eyes warm as she greeted guests who came to congratulate her. Yet behind that calm smile, Amma carried a secret. A secret she had prepared for many weeks, something she had not told even her closest family members. Underneath one of the tables at the far corner of the hall, covered carefully with a cloth so no one would see, she had hidden a small gold box. The box was not big. It was the size of two hands placed together. But it shone faintly even in the shadows. Its surface was decorated with tiny patterns carved long ago, patterns that told stories of the past. Amma had cleaned it many times, making sure its glow never faded. The box looked simple at first sight, but anyone who touched it would know it was not ordinary. It carried weight, not just the weight of gold but the weight of memory, of truth, and of history. No one in the hall knew about it. Not Kwesi, not Efua, not the relatives or the guests who sat near the corner. Amma kept her eyes moving, checking that corner every few minutes. To others, it looked like she was simply scanning the hall, watching the joy of the day. But in her heart, she was guarding the secret she had hidden there. She had promised herself that when the right moment came, when the time was perfect, she would bring out the gold box. And when she did, everything in the hall would change. Amma's heart carried both fear and hope. She wanted to see her son's wedding go smoothly without pain or shame. Yet she knew that the truth, locked inside that box, could not remain hidden forever. She felt the storm of emotions rise within her, but her face never showed it. To others she was the calm and proud mother of the groom. Inside she was a woman waiting for the moment when the past and the present would meet. The ceremony moved on. The vows were exchanged. Kwesi looked into Efua's eyes as he spoke the words that would bind them forever. His voice was steady, though his hands trembled with joy. Efua's voice followed, soft yet strong, promising love that would last through all seasons of life. The hall grew silent as the guests listened, some with tears in their eyes. When the vows ended, cheers rose like thunder, and the hall filled once again with music, dancing, and laughter. Amma clapped her hands like everyone else. She hugged her son, kissed his bride, and blessed them both with warm words. Yet even in that joyful moment, her thoughts returned to the gold box. She wondered if today was truly the right day to open it. She remembered the nights she had spent holding the box in her hands, staring at it under the light of her lamp. She remembered how her hands had shaken the first time she decided to bring it to the wedding. She could still hear her own voice whispering, "This secret cannot be buried forever." The sun outside began to set, and the lights in the hall grew brighter. Guests moved to the dance floor, clapping and swaying to the beat. The young ones danced with energy, their feet moving so fast the floor shook. The elders danced with grace, their movements slower but full of meaning. The wedding had become a festival and joy filled every corner of the hall. But in that far corner, under the table where no one looked, the gold box waited. Amma touched her necklace and closed her eyes for a moment. She whispered a prayer under her breath, asking for strength. Her heart beat fast but her face remained calm. She smiled as her son and his bride danced at the center of the floor, surrounded by clapping hands. But her eyes drifted once more to that corner. She knew the time was coming. The gold box would not remain hidden forever. When it was opened, it would reveal not just what she carried inside it, but the story of her family, the truth of her past, and the gift she had saved for this day. The night moved on, and no one noticed the storm within her heart. To the guests, it was just another wedding, beautiful, joyful, and full of promise. To Amma, it was the day her secret would rise to the surface. She sat quietly, guarding the hidden gold box, waiting for the moment when everything would change. As the ceremony continued, Amma tried to keep her face calm, but her eyes betrayed her. Every few minutes she turned her head slightly, her gaze drifting toward the far corner of the hall where the small gold box lay hidden beneath the table. She told herself not to look too often, but she could not stop. It was as if her heart was tied to that corner, pulling her eyes there again and again. The drums grew louder, filling the hall with excitement. Guests clapped in rhythm, some standing to dance. Yet Amma's thoughts were far away from the music. With every beat of the drums, she felt the pounding in her chest grow stronger. The weight of her secret pressed against her, making it hard to breathe. She knew she could not keep the truth locked away much longer. Some guests began to notice her strange behavior. A woman seated 2 tables away leaned toward her friend and whispered, "Why does Amma keep looking over there? Does she expect someone?" Her friend shrugged but also began to watch Amma carefully. Soon, quiet murmurs spread among a few people in the hall. They wondered why the groom's mother seemed so distracted on such a joyful day. Amma heard bits of the whispers, though no one spoke to her directly. She straightened her back, forced a soft smile, and clapped along with the music. But her hands shook slightly, and she quickly rested them on her lap. She told herself to remain calm, that no one knew the truth of what she guarded. Still, she could feel the curious eyes following her. Even Efua, the new bride, noticed. During a quiet moment, when guests were busy filling their plates with food, Efua leaned closer to Amma and touched her hand gently. "Mama," she said in a soft voice, "is everything all right? You look worried." Amma turned to her with a gentle smile, though her heart trembled inside. She reached out and patted Efua's hand. "It is nothing, my dear," she said quietly. "Today is your day. Enjoy it fully." Efua searched her face for a moment, as if she wanted to ask more. But then the bride smiled, nodded, and returned to her seat beside Kwesi. Amma let out a slow breath of relief, but her heart did not calm. If even Efua could see her unease, then surely others could too. She needed to gather her courage soon. For many years, Amma had kept the gold box hidden away. She had moved it from place to place, sometimes locking it in a trunk, sometimes hiding it under her bed, but always close enough that she could reach it if needed. She had guarded it not just with her hands, but with her silence. No one, not even her son, knew what it contained. She had waited patiently, telling herself that the right day would come, a day when the box must be opened. And now, sitting in the decorated wedding hall with her son and his bride before her, she knew this was that day. Her memories pressed down on her like a heavy cloth. She remembered the night she first placed the secret inside the box. She remembered the tears she had shed and the promises she had whispered to herself. The box was not just gold, it carried the weight of truth. Truth that could not stay hidden forever. The drums beat faster, pulling dancers onto the floor. Young men leapt into the air, their feet moving so quickly the floor shook. Women clapped and spun, their dresses flowing like rivers of color. The hall erupted with joy, but Amma barely noticed. Her hands gripped the edge of her chair, her eyes locked once more on the corner where the box lay. She thought of her son, Kwesi, laughing on the dance floor with his new wife. His smile was wide, his eyes shining with happiness. He had no idea of the story that lay locked in that box. He had no idea how much of his past and future were tied to it. Amma's throat grew tight as she wondered, would he thank her for revealing the truth? Or would he hate her for keeping it hidden so long? Her chest rose and fell quickly, her breath short. She pressed a hand against her heart as if to steady it. Around her, guests raised their cups in cheers. Someone leaned toward her and said, "Madam Amma, today is truly a blessing, isn't it?" Amma forced a smile. "Yes," she said softly. "A blessing." But inside she felt the storm growing stronger. She knew she could not carry this secret past tonight. She could not watch her son begin his new life while the truth remained buried. The time was coming closer with each drumbeat, with each cheer, with each laugh that rose in the hall. The whispers around her grew. 2 young men near the back pointed toward her corner glances and murmured. An older aunt frowned, her eyes narrowing as she studied Amma's tense face. Amma noticed it all, but she no longer cared. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. Soon everyone would understand. The bride and groom were invited to cut the cake. A cheer went up as the knife sliced through the tall, sweet tower of white and gold icing. Laughter filled the room as cake was served. Children crowded around for their piece, their hands sticky with sugar. The moment was light and joyful, yet Amma felt the weight grow heavier still. She whispered under her breath, words no one else could hear. Today the truth must live. Her hands tightened into fists on her lap. She thought again of the box in the corner. She imagined herself walking across the hall, lifting it from its hiding place and setting it on the table for all to see. The picture in her mind made her heart race faster. She knew the moment was near. Amma's eyes grew wet, though she did not let the tears fall. She thought of the promise she had made long ago, to one person and to herself, that the secret would not die with her. She would pass it on no matter how hard it might be. The music swelled once more, the drums echoing like a heartbeat. Amma sat still, her body calm, but her spirit burning inside. The gold box lay waiting in the corner, silent but powerful. The time to reveal it was approaching, step by step, beat by beat. She could feel it, stronger than ever before. And as the hall shook with laughter and music, Amma closed her eyes for a brief moment and prayed for strength. When she opened them again, her gaze returned to the corner. The secret she had guarded for years was ready to be revealed. The night was not yet over. The truth was coming. The celebration was at its highest. Drums thundered, trumpets blew, and the hall was alive with color and joy. The dancers spun in circles, their laughter rising with the music, and the guests clapped in time with the rhythm. Kwesi and Efua stood together, smiling as friends and relatives surrounded them with blessings. It was a day of unity, of family, and of happiness. Yet, even in the middle of all that noise and excitement, Amma's mind was fixed on the small gold box in the corner. She had guarded it for so long, and now the time had come. The moment she had feared and hoped for was finally here. When the music paused for a short break, the room suddenly grew quieter. The sound of laughter faded, and people returned to their seats, their voices dropping to gentle murmurs. That was when Amma placed her hands firmly on the table and pushed herself up. Slowly she rose to her feet. At first no one noticed. But then her voice, trembling yet strong, cut through the silence. "My family, my friends," she began, her eyes sweeping across the room. "I have something important to share." The words seemed to float in the air. One by one, conversation stopped. Chairs creaked as people turned to face her. Even the children, who had been chasing each other near the doorway, paused and stared. A heavy silence filled the hall. Kwesi looked up from his seat, puzzled. His brow furrowed as he saw the seriousness on his mother's face. Efua reached for his hand, whispering softly, "What is it?" But Kwesi shook his head, equally confused. Amma's heart raced. She could feel her legs trembling beneath her long gown. Still, she steadied herself and began to walk. Each step toward the corner felt like it carried the weight of 100 stones. When she reached the table, she bent down slowly and pulled out the small gold box. The light of the lamps glinted against its surface, and at once, gasps spread across the hall. "What is that?" someone whispered. "A gold box?" another voice said in surprise. People leaned forward, their eyes wide. Some guests rose slightly from their seats to get a better view. The box gleamed in Amma's hands, small but striking, as though it carried a power greater than its size. Amma held it close to her chest for a moment. She closed her eyes briefly as if gathering all her courage, then turned to face the crowd once again. "This box," she said, her voice steady now, "has been hidden for many years. Today I give it to my son." A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. Murmurs grew louder. Some people whispered that it must contain money, perhaps gold coins saved for the future. Others imagined it was jewelry for the bride, a hidden gift for Efua. A few even thought it might hold land documents or secret property papers. But when Amma looked up, her eyes told another story. There was no greed in her expression, no triumph, only a deep sadness mixed with strength. Whatever was inside, it was not simply treasure, it was something far deeper. Kwesi stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. His tall frame made him easy to spot, and all eyes followed him as he walked toward his mother. His heart pounded with uncertainty. "Mama," he said quietly when he reached her side, "what is this?" Amma looked at her son, her hands shaking slightly as she held out the box. "It is something that belongs to you," she said softly. "But before you open it, listen to me." The hall grew even quieter, if that was possible. Not a single person spoke. All eyes were fixed on mother and son, standing together in the middle of the wedding hall. Amma's voice carried across the room as she continued. This box has been with me for many years. Carries a truth I could not share before. I kept it hidden, waiting for the right day. That day is now. Kwesi looked at the box in her hands, then back at her face. His stomach tightened. He did not know why, but he sensed that whatever lay inside would change everything. Efua, standing nearby, stepped forward and placed her hand on Kwesi's arm, her eyes filled with concern. What truth? Kwesi asked carefully. Amma's lips pressed together. She glanced at the crowd, at the curious relatives, the whispering guests, the wide-eyed children. Then she turned back to her son. Inside this box is a part of your past, she said. A part you have never known. But it is also a gift for your future. Her words sent a wave of confusion through the hall. People exchanged looks. Some raised their eyebrows, others shook their heads in disbelief. One older uncle muttered under his breath, "What could it be?" Amma ignored the voices around her. Her eyes remained fixed on her son. Kwesi, she said firmly, take the box. With hesitation, Kwesi reached out. His hands touched the smooth, cool surface of the gold box, and for a moment he simply held it, unsure whether to open it there in front of everyone. The guests leaned forward, their curiosity growing stronger. Some bit their lips in anticipation, others whispered guesses. Open it, a young cousin whispered loudly from the back. But Kwesi hesitated, his eyes searching his mother's face. Mama, are you sure? Amma nodded slowly. Her voice softened, but it was filled with certainty. Yes, I am ready. And you must be ready too. The air in the hall grew heavy as though everyone was holding their breath. The gold box, small but shining, seemed to glow under the lights. It was no longer just an object. It was the center of every eye, every thought, every heartbeat in the room. Kwesi looked down at it again. His fingers traced the edge of the lid. His heart raced, his mind filled with questions. Why had his mother kept it hidden all these years? What secret could be so great that she waited until his wedding day to reveal it? Efua's grip tightened gently on his arm as if giving him strength. Finally, Kwesi took a deep breath. He nodded once to his mother, then lifted the box slightly, holding it in both hands for all to see. The crowd leaned forward, waiting. Amma's eyes glistened with tears, though she did not let them fall. Her heart whispered silently, the truth is finally here. With hands that trembled softly, Amma placed the small gold box on the table in front of her. The room was silent, so silent that the sound of the box's lid being lifted seemed to echo in the hall. Every eye was fixed on her, every ear straining to catch the smallest detail. The lid opened slowly and the truth inside was revealed. There were no shining piles of money. No glittering jewels or hidden treasures of gold. Instead, the box held something far humbler but far heavier in meaning. Inside were neatly folded letters, their paper yellowed with age. Beside them were a handful of faded photographs, corners bent from time. On top of it all sat a simple family ring, small and plain, yet glowing with a quiet importance. Gasps spread through the crowd. Murmurs rose like a wave, some in confusion, others in disappointment. Just letters? One guest whispered. After all this? Amma ignored the whispers. She reached into the box with careful fingers, lifting one of the folded letters and holding it in her hand. For a moment she closed her eyes and took a long, shaky breath, as if gathering her strength. Then she turned to face Kwesi. When you were a small boy, she began, her voice steady but trembling at its edges, your father, my husband, wrote these letters for you. He wrote them with love, with hope, and with dreams for your future. He wanted to give them to you himself one day. But he passed away before he had the chance. Her voice caught for a moment, and her eyes glistened with tears, but she did not stop. I have kept them safe all these years. Hidden, waiting for this moment. Kwesi's eyes widened. He stared at the letters as if they were alive, as if they carried a voice he had almost forgotten. Slowly, with trembling hands, he reached into the box and lifted one of them. The paper was fragile, but the handwriting was bold and strong, the handwriting of a father who had left too soon. Tears filled Kwesi's eyes. His lips parted, but no words came out. His heart pounded in his chest, overwhelmed by the weight of what he now held. The guests sat frozen in their seats. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others bowed their heads quietly, realizing the depth of what they were witnessing. What they had expected, a treasure chest of riches, was nothing compared to what truly lay in the box. It was not wealth of gold, but wealth of memory, of love, of legacy. Amma's voice shook as she continued. Your father's last wish was that you carry these messages into your future. He believed in you. He wanted you to know his heart, even if he could not be here by your side. Kwesi clutched the letter close to his chest, unable to hold back the tears that now rolled freely down his face. Efua, standing at his side, gently placed a hand on his shoulder, her own eyes filled with emotion. She looked at Amma with deep respect, realizing that this woman had carried a burden of love and pain for so many years, only to share it now on her son's most important day. Amma reached back into the box and lifted the family ring. She held it up for everyone to see. "This ring," she said softly, "belonged to your father. He wanted you to wear it on your wedding day as a reminder of his love for you and his blessing on your marriage. He could not stand here with you, but through this ring and through these letters, his spirit is present today." The hall grew quiet again. Not the silence of confusion this time, but the silence of reverence. People bowed their heads, some wiping tears from their own eyes. The truth had touched them deeply. Kwesi took the ring with trembling hands. He slid it onto his finger, the metal cool against his skin, but his heart felt warm. He looked at his mother with gratitude and pain. "Mama," he whispered, his voice breaking, "why did you wait until now?" Amma's face softened. "Because today is the day you begin a new life. Today is the day your father would have been most proud. I wanted you to carry his words into your marriage, into your future. I wanted his blessing to live on in you." Kwesi closed his eyes, clutching the letter in one hand and the ring on his finger. For the first time in years, he felt his father close, as if standing beside him in spirit, smiling at the man he had become. Efua leaned closer and whispered, "Your father is here, Kwesi." Through these words, "He is here." The crowd was silent still, moved by the power of what they had witnessed. Even those who had judged Amma earlier, whispering that the gold box might contain wealth or hidden riches, now lowered their heads in shame. They understood at last that the greatest treasures are not measured in gold or jewels, but in love and memory. Amma carefully placed the remaining letters and photographs on the table. She said nothing more, but her eyes spoke volumes. She had carried this secret for so long, protecting it with her heart, and now the burden had been lifted. Kwesi turned to the crowd, his eyes wet but his voice strong. "This is my true inheritance," he said firmly, holding up the letter. "Not wealth, not land, not jewels, but the love of my father passed to me through my mother. Today I am richer than any man alive." Applause rose slowly, softly at first, then louder as people clapped, not just for Kwesi but for Amma, for her strength, and for the memory of the man who had written those letters. Some of the guests wiped tears from their cheeks, while others whispered to one another, saying they had never seen a gift so powerful, so pure, given at a wedding. Amma stepped closer to her son and wrapped her arms around him. For a moment, mother and son stood together in a tight embrace, their love and grief blending into one. The gold box sat on the table, open for all to see. No longer a mystery, it now shone brighter than before, not because of its contents, but because of what it represented: the bond of family, the strength of memory, and the timeless power of love. The drums remained silent. The guests remained seated. The moment was too sacred to interrupt. And in that silence, everyone in the hall understood. This wedding was not just the joining of two hearts. It was also the healing of an old wound, the passing of a father's blessing, and the unveiling of a treasure greater than wealth. Kwesi held the letter tightly in his hands. His fingers shook as he unfolded the paper, its edges worn and soft from years of being kept safe. For a moment he just stared at the handwriting. It was strong, bold, and alive, his father's writing. His eyes blurred with tears, but he forced himself to read. His voice trembled at first, but the room was so silent that every word seemed to echo. "My son," he began, his father's words flowing through his lips, "when you grow into a man, I may not be there to see it. But I want you to know that I believe in you. Life will test you, but never forget that you carry my strength and your mother's love inside you." Gasps rose quietly from the guests. Some covered their mouths, others bowed their heads. The power of the words filled the hall. It was as if the man who had passed long ago was now standing among them, speaking through his son. Kwesi's voice broke, but he continued. "Love with courage. Work with honesty. Lead with kindness. And when you find the woman who shares your heart, honor her as I have honored your mother." At that line, Kwesi's voice cracked completely. Tears ran down his cheeks. Efua, standing beside him, placed a gentle hand on his arm, steadying him. She too could hardly keep her own tears from falling. The guests wiped their eyes openly now. The hall, which had moments ago been filled with music, laughter, and dancing, was now filled with something far deeper. Love that crossed even the boundary of death. Amma, who had been silent as her son read, stepped forward. Her hands shook, but her face carried peace. She reached into the gold box once more and pulled out the simple family ring. She held it out, not to Kwesi but to Efua. "This," she said softly, her voice warm, "is now yours as you join our family. It is not gold to sell nor silver to shine. It is a promise, a blessing passed down from the man who should have been here today. Wear it and remember that love makes us stronger than wealth ever could." Efua cupped the ring in her palm, her tears falling freely now. She whispered, "Thank you, Mama," her voice breaking with emotion. Slowly she slipped the ring onto her finger. It glowed faintly under the light, plain and simple, yet it carried more meaning than any jewel she had ever seen. The gold box sat open on the table. Once hidden in secrecy, it now stood as the most unforgettable part of the wedding. People stared at it not for what was inside but for what it represented. It carried no riches of gold or silver. No treasure that could be measured in coins or counted in jewels. Instead, it carried riches of the heart, memories, wisdom, blessings, and love that lived beyond time. Amma stood tall, her face wet with tears but her heart lighter than it had been in years. For so long she had guarded the box as if it were fragile glass. Now she had shared its truth and she could finally breathe freely. Kwesi folded the letter again, holding it close to his chest. He looked at the guests, his eyes filled with emotion. "My father is here with us today," he said quietly. "Through these words, through this ring, through this love, he is here. This is my inheritance, and it is worth more than any wealth." The guests nodded in silence. Some clapped softly. Others whispered prayers. But all of them carried the same thought. They had just witnessed something greater than a celebration of marriage. They had witnessed a bridge between past and present, between life and death, between love and eternity. The music began again, gentle and slow. Couples held each other closely, some whispering about the letters, others about their own families. The wedding had taken on a new meaning, one that would never be forgotten. As the evening went on, people kept returning to the table to look at the gold box. They spoke quietly about its contents, not with gossip but with admiration. Many said it was the greatest wedding gift they had ever seen, not because of its value but because of its truth. Amma sat quietly watching her son and his bride dance. For the first time in many years she felt at peace. Her husband's words had finally reached their son. His blessing had been spoken, and his love had been felt. Efua, wearing the family ring, held Kwesi's hand tightly as they moved across the floor. She whispered in his ear, "Your father is proud of you. I can feel it." Kwesi nodded, his voice too heavy with emotion to reply. But deep in his heart he knew she was right. The night continued with laughter, dancing, and joy, but it was different now. It was deeper. The guests would carry the memory of the moment forever. They would tell others about the wedding where the groom's mother revealed a hidden gold box that did not hold wealth, but something far more powerful. By the time the celebration ended, no one spoke about the decorations, the food, or even the music. All they spoke about was the box, the letters, the photographs, and the ring. They spoke about the father's words, about the tears in Kwesi's voice, and the strength in Amma's heart. It had been a wedding filled with beauty, but the true beauty was not in the flowers or the music. It was in the treasure of love that had been hidden for years, only to be revealed at the perfect time. As the last guests left, Amma closed the box gently and handed it to Kwesi. "It is yours now," she said softly. "Keep it safe. One day when your own children are ready, give it to them. Let them know the love that built this family." Kwesi nodded, holding the box close. He kissed his mother's forehead and whispered, "Thank you, Mama, for keeping his love alive." Amma smiled through her tears. For the first time in years she felt her husband close beside her, as if he too were smiling at their son. The gold box had been hidden for years, but on this day, it became light for everyone to see. And in that light, they all discovered the truth. The greatest treasure is love, carried from one heart to another, lasting far longer than time itself. The wedding, once thought to be only a day of union, became a memory no one would ever forget. It became a story of inheritance, not of wealth but of love. And so, as the lights dimmed and the music faded, the legacy of the gold box lived on. The end.